Starting us off with number 10 is Thanksgiving turkey. User Mash Skulls shared that about a month ago they had sleep paralysis. One morning they started hearing this distorted, deep, unfamiliar voice. They started hearing more than one voice and tried to move or wake up, but they couldn't. And this is where it gets really freaking screwed up. The user saw a bunch of faceless men with razor-sharp teeth coming towards them, grinding their teeth as they went. They were whispering food, food, food over and over again, and were legit holding knives and forks. Now imagine being unable to control or move your body as these cannibal creatures just coming towards you. Now they surrounded the user, climbed on top of them, and then carved them like a turkey. It gets graphic. They tore the user limb from limb. They went headfirst into the rest of their body like a bunch of starving hyenas. The user watched them take her own finger bones and use them as toothpicks. Can you even, I don't even want to imagine this. The user literally had to listen to Beethoven for 3 hours after the dream just to get the image of being eaten alive out of their head. And honestly, I don't even know what I would do in that position. Probably not Beethoven, maybe Mozart.
Next up, number 9, we have Ayman al-Zawahiri. After Osama bin Laden was killed in 2011, al-Zawahiri has been the leader of Al-Qaeda. The terrorist organization is confirmed to have carried out numerous attacks throughout the world, leading to hundreds if not thousands of deaths, and they have also claimed responsibility for other violent crimes. There is currently a 25 million USD reward for information that leads to his arrest. Moving right along, number 8, we have Rocco Morabito. Morabito is an Italian mobster and something of an escape artist when it comes to evading the law. He has been on the run for 23 years, starting back in 1994. Is this real life right now? How can we not capture this guy? We have so much advanced technology. And he's been on the run for his crimes related to drug trafficking, the mafia, and other serious crimes. His wiki actually never revealed what his crimes were. They were probably too horrifying, but if we're dealing with the mafia, I can only imagine what he's done. I've watched a lot of movies. Well, he was ultimately caught in 2017 with a bunch of guns, credit cards, cell phones, money. But like I said at the beginning of this, he's an escape artist. So he was able to escape again 2019. So we're talking just last year, and right now he's still at large. Number 7 spot today goes to George Luis Mendoza Cardenas. Cardenas is a Mexican drug lord, one of the leaders of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. This cartel provides marijuana, heroin, meth, and cocaine to some of the biggest cities in the US. He has been wanted since 2016, but also for the gruesome murder of a family of 6. He was arrested in 2008, but was mysteriously released with no explanation. My explanation might be drug money. He might have bought his way out of this one, and threats. He probably threatened a lot of people. He has been wanted by the DEA since 2016, and he's somewhere out there. Our number 6 spot goes to Nemesia Asegura Cervantes. Cervantes is the official leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, above even Cardenas. He is the most wanted fugitive in Mexico right now, and the government is offering 30 million MXN just for the information that leads to his arrest. He is actually suspected on ordering the murder of 17-year-old YouTube star Juan Rosales, and this is after he made a video making fun of him. Halfway through this list now, we have Anders Cameron Ostavik Dale. Dale has been blacklisted since 2014 by the US Department of State, but he has been wanted ever since 2012 for his connections with Al-Qaeda. After breaking off contact with his wife, he has been reportedly missing since 2012, and he is suspected to have received explosives training, specifically in making bomb belts, implosives, explosives, and car bombs. He became wanted in 2012 after planning the bombing of the 2012 Olympic Games. Next up, number 4, we have Hayat Bomandini. Bomandini is wanted for being the accomplice to her husband, Amity Coulibaly, after he shot and killed a police officer at the Montarogue shooting. He also took hostages and killed 4 civilians in the Port de Vences siege, and this is where he was killed by police. So although her husband was killed by police, she's still out there somewhere, and she's still very dangerous, and she is still wanted. And at number 3 is David Durham. Durham has been wanted by the FBI since 2011 after shooting and seriously injuring a cop at a routine traffic stop. To this day, nobody is sure why he reacted the way he did. Did he commit other crimes? that he didn't want to get caught for. His friends and family said that he has been on painkillers and seemed paranoid leading up to the shooting. He disappeared immediately after shooting the police officer, and even after extensive search, there has been no confirmed sightings of him. I mean, he's now become like the Loch Ness Monster. Like, where is he? Coming at number 2 is Eugene Palmer. Palmer is one of the most recent additions to the FBI's top 10 wanted fugitives list. And this is after his son and daughter-in-law separated and the DIL got a restraining order against her husband. She and Palmer got into multiple heated arguments. This escalated until one day when Palmer started shooting at her from a distance and then provided one last close-range shot that killed her. He has been on the run ever since that happened, and no traces of him has ever been found other than the pickup truck that was used to flee the scene, but he has not been seen. And wrapping our number 1 spot, we have Xavier Dupont de Legons. Legons is currently at large for murdering and burying his entire family behind their home. Is this real life right now? Well, in early April of 2011, he shot and killed his wife, their 4 children, ages 20, 18, 16, and even 13, and their family dog. Their bodies were found a few weeks later under their porch, and despite 900 suspected sightings of this guy since, he has never been caught. This guy has become a mastermind. Well, there you guys have it. That was your top 10 scariest people who are still in hiding. Hopefully none of us come across him, and hopefully these people are caught really soon.
Number 10, Memnon. We're kicking this list off with one of the greatest warriors ever. Memnon was said to be an immortal warrior from Greek mythology, who was one of the best warriors in the land, second only to the great Achilles. He's an Ethiopian king and really the most prevalent African figure in all of Greek mythos. It's said that he was killed by the only man who was a better warrior than him, Achilles, who might have also been immortal. Maybe it was like South Park rules. It takes an immortal to kill an immortal.
Coming in at number 9 are the cats. I will shamelessly try and include cats in every video if I can. I don't even care. I don't even care if it's relevant. Anyway, this story comes from Redditor Gave a Sky, who said they recently had a dream they were in an apartment with a few cats. That's just my dream. I mean, that's my life actually. Anyway, everything seemed pretty normal and very real until one of the cats literally up and jumped out of the balcony. The person was a bit wary, so they sat in the kitchen just to collect their thoughts. Then one of the cats just sits next to them on a different chair, except the user just can't look at the cat. It felt like looking at the sun. The cat wasn't even bright, but they just couldn't look at it. Out of the periphery of their vision, they realized the cat was morphing into something else entirely. This menacing creature with a disturbing face. It morphed into some humanoid creature, and the user couldn't see its body, but its face was pale and square and had no features whatsoever except 2 eyes. The user immediately feels like the whole world is just closing in on them, and they wake up, but the creature is still there, getting closer. Realizing they're not actually awake yet, they somehow willed their unconscious body to fall off the bed in order to actually wake up. They ended up blacking out after they fell off the bed and refused to sleep alone for 4 days. Honestly, this is very impressive that they willed themselves to wake up when they were asleep. I feel like I wouldn't even know how to do that. At number 8, we have the woman. Honestly, I feel like everyone can somehow relate to this story, and I'll tell you why after. So this person shared one of the most terrifying dreams and said they actually suffer from really bad sleep paralysis. They have a rocking chair in their bedroom, and I don't know why they do. That's literally the first thing to get haunted, if anything. Like, why? Either way, one night they were laying on their bed unable to move, and they looked at the chair. There was a pale grey woman on the chair with blonde hair who was crying her eyes out while staring at the storyteller. And while she was crying her eyes out, she was also pulling out her insides. The person closed their eyes, and they were trying everything to not see this right now, and then they felt this heavy pressure on their chest. They opened their eyes and saw this woman sitting on their chest pulling out her inner organs. The storyteller was so terrified they peed themselves, and mind you, they were 20 years old at the time. I can't even imagine the horror this person must have been going through, and I always think, honestly, why I said it was relatable is because I always think my chair with a bunch of laundry on top is a person in the dark, and I know a lot of other people get scared of that as well, so I was like, oh my god, hashtag relatable. But with the organ pulling woman, I'm just like, I hope that's not relatable. Please. Filling our number 7 slot is Gracies Mum, not to be confused with Stacy's mum. Reddit user Rakis11 shared the story of how when she was 5 years old she had her first ever nightmare, but things didn't really end even after she woke up. In her dream she was at her friend Gracie's house and they were drawing on her deck with chalk, and mind you she lived on a cliff near the seaside. Views for days. Either way, Gracie's mum came out and yelled at the girls for drawing on the deck, and then her mum started turning into something evil. She was getting uglier and uglier and her skin had just changed shades like 4 times. The user could see this happening, but Gracie had no idea what was going on. Either way, the mum realizes the user knows she's evil and throws them both off the cliff, and that's when she woke up. Now a few weeks pass after the stream, and then one day Gracie isn't at school. Apparently Gracie had drowned in the pool at her house and her parents had filled the pool in, got divorced and moved straight away, which is sus as hell. Either way, 8 years later, the user's brother, who wasn't even born at the time of the incident, was just walking on a trail near Gracie's old house and he goes, "Gracie says hello." The user was like, "What are you talking about, Cam?" And all he said was, "The wet girl." The user never told her brother about Gracie, he had no idea it even happened. But I feel like her dream about the evil mum had something to do with what really happened. Like, it's just too suspicious for like a couple's kid to die and then quickly just like fill up the pool and just move away. Like, it's something just not sitting right with me. Now at number 6 is The Mask. This one was shared by an anonymous person who said one night he was watching TV in bed when out of nowhere his TV just went black. Despite turning it on from the remote a bunch of times, it just wasn't working, which was weird since this had never happened before. Either way, while trying to get it to work, he ended up falling asleep. He started feeling this huge pressure on his chest and his face was getting pushed to look at the wall. Now something or someone was grabbing his face and turning it to face the ceiling now with such force he thought his jawbone was about to break. When he opened his eyes in this state, he saw this massive black figure on top of him with a mask as a face that was fixed in the creepiest smile. But it wasn't even a proper mask, the thing had just drawn it on itself. It puts its finger on the guy's lips and just says shh. He then literally fainted from fear, and when he woke up he made a beeline for his mum's room. And honestly, as any honest adult, I would do the same. No shame. Go to mommy's room straight away. She can protect you from all. Now coming in at number 5 is The Darkness. Now this one's from Redditor The Pixel Mouse, who has this recurring dream about a creature she dubbed the Darkness. The monster appears in 2 forms. The first is in human form at a crowded place like a mall for example, and she won't even realize it's there until it starts appearing everywhere around her, and then everyone else just disappears. At this point the Darkness starts running at her in super speed, and as soon as it grabs her, she wakes up. In the second rarer form, she'll randomly be in a room in her house, and as she goes into another room it'll go dark straight away and she'll know she's about to get royally screwed over. Like, at least she's self-aware, she knows it's happening, she knows it's coming. Even if she tries to escape this dark room, she gets pulled back in, so she just literally closes her eyes, waits for the darkness to grab her, and then she wakes up. The only thing she knows about its form is that it has long sharp fingers, because that's all she's ever really touched. Man's eyes are closed for the rest of the time, so the monster could literally take any true form. None of us will ever know. At number 4 is The Little Girl. This one's from Reddit user Pretends He Knows Stuff, who said one summer a few years ago he had a super high fever and sleep paralysis, which is probably the shittiest combo ever. Throw diarrhea into the mix and then it'd really be the shittiest combo. Pun intended. Anyway, that night he had a dream that everyone he knew was crying over this little girl, and when he got close to her he realized why. The girl was missing half of her face, and the guy said "what a shame" to her, and all of a sudden the room went grey. I love how this girl's face is half missing and all he said was "what a shame." Like, you can come up with something better than that. Anyway, in this grey room he wakes up and sees the girl inches from his face, and all she keeps saying is "you did this to me." Except after saying it a bunch of times, she's not a little girl anymore, now she's like an elderly woman, and then that woman goes and jumps on his chest. Like, grandma's into acrobatics lately. The guy thought his lungs were burning up, and he claims that he actually prays every day still that that dream never happens to him again. May God be with you. Filling our number 3 slot is The Spider. This one was shared by an anonymous user who said they dreamt they were walking through a wasteland, probably from Fallout. The game Fallout, if you guys know it, you probably do. Either way, they were with a group of people they didn't know, and everything was a weird shade of either green or black. Like no other color even existed in this dream. Either way, they entered into a ruined building and they found someone crouched down on the ground with their back to them. For some weird dream logic reason, the person just knew they knew the person who was crouching down. They were so relieved, and as they went to touch the crouched person on the shoulder, everything became slow motion, like they were underwater almost. As they touched the person's shoulder, everything became normal speed again, and they turned around to look at each other. Except this person, they didn't know them. The person had one eye, and instead of having an iris or pupils or even whites, it was just a freaking spider as an eye. A black spider, and the bits that should have been white were green. The person literally jumped awake, and only when they were awake did they realize that thing was their sister. 20 years on, they remember the dream in such vivid detail, which goes to show how much it really scarred them. I hate insects, so if I saw a cyclops person with a spider for an eye, I would off myself. There's no hope for me now. Done with it. I don't want to be on this planet anymore. Now at number 2 is the Two Part Banshee. So this also came from an anonymous person, and they recall 2 slightly linked dreams that they had when they were 7 years old and one right now. In the first dream, they were laying in bed trying to sleep. Bored, they were like, let me just look at the shadows on my wall till I fall asleep. But the more they noticed the shadows, the faster the shadows started moving until they fully came off the walls. They started tugging at the person's feet, and all of a sudden 3 toddlers climbed onto the bed, and if that wasn't creepy enough, they all had glowing yellow eyes. Like great, honestly, what else can go wrong? Love it. Simultaneously, the 3 babies let out the most high-pitched scream the person had ever heard before pulling them off the bed. And that was the first dream, which all in all was horrific but doable. Years and years later, the person had another dream. They were walking to the bathroom to get something from their cabinet, and as soon as they closed it, they hear the same high-pitched scream that the toddlers had let out all those years ago. When the person looked into the mirror on the cabinet, they saw that the bathtub behind them was full of blood, and a little girl was standing in the middle of it holding a freaking knife. Now the person who was looking at this started fainting in slow motion, and as they were falling, everything just started glitching and distorting, and the girl in the tub was just smiling and smiling as she moved towards the person. I just have to take a few deep breaths to digest the story. Even though I've already read it since I've written about it, I still need to digest it again because that was too much. And finally, at number 1 is the basement. According to Flugu, which is this girl's username, when she was 8 years old, she used to have this recurring dream that wouldn't stop for months. She even forced herself to stay awake for 3 whole days just so she wouldn't have to see this dream again. And honestly, if that doesn't set this story up well, nothing will. Now in her dream, she's in her basement with her sisters getting something to drink when all of a sudden her sisters' faces just start getting really weird. Their noses and mouths start shrinking, and their eyes take up 90% of their face. The girl starts screaming and running up the stairs, but the sister creatures grab her neck and pull her down the stairs. By the time she's fallen down all these stairs and reached the bottom, one of the sister creatures pulls her up from the neck. When the girl looks at the creature, her face becomes oddly normal and human, except it's not human. She seems to have like another layer of skin on top of her face, and before the Flugu can even figure out what the hell is going on, the creature starts screaming like a demon, and all she can do is scream out of fear in response. The dream was so bad that the first time she had it, her mum told her she screamed for 3 hours straight before waking up. And that last bit really got to me because like how terrified you have to be to like literally be screaming 3 hours when you're unconscious.
So starting us off on this list, number 10, we have Harif Saeed. Well, Saeed is the co-founder of the militant group Lashkar-e-Taiba and the chief of Jamaat Dawa. Well, there's been a bounty of 10 million USD since 2012, so if you find him and capture this guy, you can be rewarded $10 million. Well, this bounty was placed on him after he had a role in the 2008 Mumbai attacks that caused 164 civilians to lose their lives. However, he claims that he had nothing to do with the attacks, and he laughed at the bounty that is out for him, stating, "I'm living my life in the open, and I might be somewhere in the US. I'm here in front of everyone, and I'm not hiding in a cave." Pretty damn terrifying if you asked me.
Number 9, Merlin. We all know Merlin. He's one of the most famous characters from English myth. Being the guy who helped King Arthur, it must be easy to become king when you have a wizard in your back pocket. But what if he isn't myth? What if the character is real and is still walking around to this day? There's evidence of characters like Merlin or Merlin himself popping up again and again through English history. Some people believe that he's still alive and still protecting the royal family. Maybe if he's still alive, he should retire from protecting some of the richest people in the world and help out the rest of us. Why not cast a spell that gives me a good night's sleep for once? Number 8. Hercules. One of the buffest dudes in history. If you don't know the story of Hercules, he was basically a demigod and he wanted to be a god. And the gods told him, if you want to be a god, you gotta show everyone how much of a stud you are. And he did. He killed a lion with his bare hands, then he killed a multi-headed fire-breathing hydra, and he went to the underworld and captured the gatekeeper of the underworld. This dude's a legend, and his core strength must have been insane. Now the story goes that he was never given his wish and granted godhood, but many people believe that the myth is wrong and this is just the story that was passed around. That the true story is that he was gifted his rightful god power and immortality. As long as he never told a soul, he would keep his godhood. I mean, you wouldn't want him to tell anyone because then there would be a bunch of people trying to kill stuff trying to become gods. Number 7. Sir Galahad. One of the most famous knights of the Round Table. The original boys club. I bet they all met in a treehouse, you had to climb a rope ladder to get into it. You could only get in if you knew the secret password and there was a sign on the door that said no girls allowed. I might be mixing up King Arthur's knights with the Little Rascals. Anyways, Sir Galahad was the illegitimate son of Sir Lancelot and Elaine of Corbetic, and it said he is one of the people who has found the Holy Grail. Drinking from said grail is supposed to grant the person immortality. Now just like Merlin, Galahad is supposed to be one thing of legend, but some people believe that the knights did exist and are still in charge of secret underground cults to this day. If this is real, I would want footage of someone putting Galahad in one of Elon Musk's rockets and his face as he gets shot into space. Nothing like a 1,000-year-old man seeing what space looks like. Number 6. Conan OBrien. Let's take a hard left turn out of myth and turn it to something that might be one of the strangest on the list. Late night TV show host Conan OBrien. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because of this picture. This is a comparison picture between Conan and a Civil War soldier. They are eerily close to each other. Maybe Conan is closer to Wolverine than the hilarious ginger comic we have all come to know and love. What if all his jokes are just a way he can cover up his PTSD from fighting in centuries of wars? I mean, good for him. To go from war vet to American celebrity, that's a big jump that almost no one could do. Maybe back on the battlefield, no one thought he was funny, so he became immortal out of sheer willpower, just so he could stay alive long enough to find his audience. Number 5. James Bedford. If you're going to die, but you have faith that in the future they'll be able to bring you back to life, then why not throw your body into a giant freezer? James Bedford was the first person ever to be cryogenically frozen. He was an American psychology professor at the University of California and wanted his body to be preserved for later days, just in case they ever figured out a way to bring frozen people back from the dead so they could walk around again. If this was ever to happen, he would be first in line. He passed away in 1967, and right after he was pronounced legally dead, they threw him in a big chest freezer and set it to Ice Age. I'm sure it was more scientific than that, but you get the idea. Now, we haven't come across the technology to resurrect this guy, but if we do, he's gonna get the Captain America treatment and be very close to being immortal. Number 4. Hugh Glass. Have you ever seen The Revenant? The movie where Leonardo DiCaprio has the worst weekend ever? Well, in that movie, he plays frontiersman Hugh Glass. Now, Hugh Glass was mauled by a bear and left for dead and had to trek for miles and miles with broken bones and brutal wounds and survived. How did he do this? Well, the history books said he did this with grit, determination, and pure survivalist instincts. But the deep dark corners of the internet have other opinions. Some people are pushing the idea that he's an immortal or has some sort of Deadpool healing factor. This would allow him to survive such a brutal attack and make it back to full health. And if this is true, he might still be alive to this day, keeping his healing ability secret from the public. Number 3. Jack Lucas. One of the biggest bad all time. This guy literally might be unkillable. I don't want to trash talk him because I'm pretty sure he would find me and come beat the hell out of me. Jack Lucas fought in World War II, and while serving, he jumped on 2 Japanese grenades and survived both explosions. And not like barely even survived, he kept serving in the army. Maybe back then, Japanese craftsmanship wasn't what it is now. After this, he became a paratrooper, and on one of his jumps, his chute didn't deploy. Now you think plummeting to the earth would surely just kill you. Not Jack Lucas. His buddies found him alive and well. This dude is probably like a werewolf or a robot or like a robot werewolf. Number 2, Roy Benavides. We're gonna stay on this trend of people who could beat up anyone's dad with Roy Benavides. Roy Benavides was a special forces officer. He stepped on a landmine in 1965 and he was told he would never walk again. And he was like, not only am I gonna walk again, I'm gonna go back and fight in war again. And he did. He fought in the Vietnam War. During one battle, he was leading a small troop and they were under attack by over 1,000 Vietnamese soldiers. By the time the fighting was done, he had been wounded by either gunfire, knives, or shrapnel 37 times. 37! He was pronounced dead and put in a body bag. Then, he came back to life and unzipped the body bag he was inside. Death probably looked at this guy and was like, nah, you're too much for me. We're trying to build a nice neighborhood over here. You stay alive. Number 1, Tsutomu Yamaguchi. What's the worst week you've ever had? Whatever it is, I bet it's not as bad as this guy. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima in 1945 when the first atomic bomb dropped. He obviously survived, I mean he's on our list of immortals. He did sustain some injuries, his skin was burned and one of his eardrums was ruptured, but for an atomic bomb dropping, that's like leaving relatively unscathed. So he was injured and he went home to Nagasaki. 3 days later, he was at work sharing his crazy story of how he saw the atomic bomb get dropped, and then if you know your history, the second atomic bomb was dropped and the dude survived again. He took back-to-back atomic bomb bombings and walked away with an earache. This dude could very well be immortal or at least radiation proof.